Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So here's another brand new deck profile ready for you guys. This time it's on my Ritual Beast. So first off, before I even get started, I'd like to give shoutouts to my friend Alex Bastian. Some of y'all might recognize him. He's actually played Ritual Beast for a very long time. In fact, he's the reason why I decided to build this deck. He inspired me like a while back, especially because like I dueled against him. And honestly, I've never seen the way he played it before at the time. And honestly, I was impressed. And this was when extra linking was a big deal. Like everyone was running Firewall Dragon, Gunblur Dragon, when Nightmare Goblin was still legal. And yet he was still able to top at the Houston Regional with 7th place. So honestly, I was just like, you know what? This deck now has my utmost respect. I really want to build it one of these days. And well, now I got all the cards and yeah, so I'm just gonna show you guys my own take on how I play this deck, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this. All right, so starting off with the main deck, you're gonna be playing 3 Elders. So this is actually the best card in the entire deck. It gives you the additional normal summon if this card summon goes through, which most of the time you should be just fine. Just gotta watch out for Solemn Warning or Judgment. That's literally the one card that can stop this deck. Next, 3 Winda, the one that's based, of course, Il Shadal Winda is based on. This is one of the more recent ones. So generally, this card's destroyed by battle card effects. You can special summon another Ritual Beast monster from your extra deck or your deck, ignoring the summoning conditions. But I mostly just go for the main deck. I rarely touch the extra deck because you generally want to bring out your fusion monsters by the correct means. Next, 3 Rampengu. This card's actually pretty good. It's a Foolish Burial. Banish 1 Ritual Beast monster from your extra deck and send it 1 Ritual Beast monster of the same type as the monster you sent. And that's generally it. So it's just like a Foolish Burial. And the whole point is like you want to try to get these monsters out as quickly as you can. And generally, this deck's got a lot of good recursion. So basically, this is what Salamangreats were kind of like before they even existed. Most people compare Salamangreat to Zodiac, but honestly, I've always seen them more closely to the Ritual Beast because of their crazy recursion. Moving on. 3 Kanahawk. So this card is also similar to Rampengu, only this card is more like Gold Sarcophagus. You banish 1 Ritual Beast card from your deck, face up, and then during your second standby phase, you get that card back to your hand. So this basically just acts as Gold Sark at basically 4 copies, really. So, yeah. Next, 2 copies of Paleo. Some people like to run this at 1. I know Alex, for as long as I've known him, he's always ran this at 1. Me personally, I actually do want to see this card from time to time, but generally it's the power boost for your Ritual Beast. You banish 1 from your grave, and then all Ritual Beast monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense points. So it's not bad. I mean, the fact that you can basically just get a free power boost, it's just not bad at all. Next, 2 copies of Win. So it's kind of like a return from the different dimension-esque card. It brings back, well, once per turn you can target 1 banished Ritual Beast monster and special summon it. So I figure it's like, okay, so it's just like return from the different dimension, but not summoning like a whole bunch of monsters at once, just 1 monster. 1 Lara, which is your actual monster reborn. If this card's normal summon, you can target 1 Ritual Beast monster in your grave and just special summon it. And the last for the Ritual Beast monsters is Patelfin. You banish 1 Ritual Beast card, and then you can bounce back 1 card your opponent controls. So, really good. I'm not running the Pendulum. Actually, Alex explained to me why you shouldn't run it. It's just it's just kind of weak. It doesn't do much. So, honestly, I'm just going to follow his advice and just not run it. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, moving on to hand traps. I'm actually only running 5 in this deck. I'm running 3 copies of Dimension Shifter. This card's actually really good in this deck too, because the whole point of this deck is that it gets its advantages by banishing monsters, and you can recur your banished cards, so that's why it's so good. It's just basically Macrocosmo for a turn, and Macrocosmo's at 1, so this just basically acts it until the end of the next turn. But the only bad side is that you have to have no cards in your grave for this card to work. But if you can manage to empty out your graveyard somehow, you should be able to use this multiple times. Next, 2 copies of Ghost Ogre. I'm only running the 2 because if I spring out Dimension Shifter or Dimension Fissure or even Macrocosmo, this card is kind of dead because it has to hit the grave to resolve. But it's a psychic monster. It's searchable through the effect of Emergency Teleport. So if I need that Ghost Ogre for the turn, it definitely helps. And plus, the fact is like Again, it's just like Ogre is just really good this format. Actually, some people kind of underrate this card. I personally think it's still really good. Like, definitely one of the best hand traps still. It's just good against certain matchups. So, and most people never see it coming. So, yeah, that's just the general gist of that. Alright, so for spells, I'm actually running a lot of 1-ofs on this. I'm running 1 Ritual Beast Return. I'm not running Bond because Bond, like I said, like, it's good, but it's kind of risky because, like, you definitely want to summon the Ritual Beast extra deck monsters by the correct means. If you don't do that, you will not be able to get some of the benefits, so that's one of the things about it. But Ritual Beast Return, what I like about it is that you banish 1 Ritual Beast monster from your hand, then target one that's banished, and special summon it. And you can also special summon from grave too, so it's just another monster reborn. And again, like, you could easily recur all your banished cards anyway, so that's why I don't really feel like this card's gonna neg. 1 Dimensional Shifter, don't want your opponent to have monsters in the grave. That's kind of the whole idea behind this. 1 Gold Sark, just an excellent way just to get access to all your cards again. 1 Emergency Teleport. We do have a couple targets, so if you haven't been paying attention, then y'all should know which targets I'm aiming for. 1 Foolish Burial, and of course the card that usually comes in clutch is Monster Reborn. Definitely helps out. Like I say, you want to get cards in your grave or just banish them. But if you do have some in your grave, definitely want to revive it or just aim for your opponent's graveyard too, so you never know when you'll actually need it. Alright, so running a bunch of traps actually. This deck actually runs a whole lot of them. I'm running 3 copies of Steeds. This card's like crazy good. It's non-targeting destruction. And yeah, you do have to deal with cards like the Thunder Dragons, but I do have an answer to that, so don't worry. I'll get to that in just a moment. And plus, since if you can manage to keep your opponent from having cards in their graveyard, especially monsters, the Thunder Dragons don't really have any ways to protect themselves anyway, so because they need Thunder monsters. But yeah, like I said, I do have a way to deal with that in case if they do. So, like I said, we'll get that shortly. 1 Ambush. Alex was saying that this deck doesn't really need it as much as it used to now. 1 is all you'll ever need, so... And I'm starting to agree why, because, like, again, it just does the same thing as Win. It just does, like, lets you bring back one of your banished Ritual Beast monsters, or Spiritual Beast. Next up, for my tech, I'm actually running 3 copies of Lost Wind. It's just a budget version of Impermanence. But the reason why I like this card is that it's permanent negation. It cuts the monster's attack points in half. So, and again, it's like, a lot of people don't see this card coming half the time. So, that's why I'm starting to enjoy playing it a lot in some of my other decks. So, Lost Wind, definitely something to consider. 2 copies of Solemn Judgment. Pretty much stops everything. Why is this card even at 3 in the first place? I don't know. But I only have room for 2, so... it just comes whenever I really need it, and plus it's easy to side out if you really need to. 1 Macrocosmos, it's a staple in this deck. It's only at 1 for a reason. And then 1 Imperial Order. Since, this is more of a trap-reliant deck than a spell-heavy one, that's why I'm okay with running it. Alright, so for the extra deck, I'm running 2 copies of Ulticumun Falcos. So this card's pretty interesting. It gives a power boost to any Ritual Beast it points to by 600 attack and defense points. You can banish 1 Ritual Beast card from your graveyard, and then after it resolves, normal summon 1 Ritual Beast. So this is another way to get additional normal summons, which is very needed in this deck. You definitely want to try to normal summon as many times as you can. And like the fusion monsters, it has the ability to tag itself back out to the extra deck, and special summon 2 Ritual Beast cards from your banished pile, 1 Beast Tamer and 1 Spiritual Beast back in defense mode. I'm running 1 Gravefly. Since this is a wind deck, you definitely want to give your wind monster some power. I'm actually running this card. This card's actually pretty decent. Harass Velgar, the Desperate Doom Eagle. This card is actually not bad. It requires 2+ wind monsters, which again, the entire deck is wind. Gains 2,400 attack points while your opponent has no monsters in their graveyard. Now, the only thing is, like, you gotta take a risk with is that if you want to target 1 monster in your graveyard, your opponent's graveyard, and shuffle it back, just so you can have that power boost, it's a good way to OTK. But keep in mind, you are technically giving your opponent recursion. But if your opponent has no monsters in the graveyard anyway, especially if you manage to banish all of them, you should be just fine with this card by itself. So the fact that its attack points double is just nuts. I'm running 1 copy of Topologic Trisbana, for back row heavy strategies. I don't want to deal with, like, back row. 1 Borlo Dragon and Boral Sword Dragon, just, to put pressure on my opponent. And that's really the only reason why I have to run these, really. And Borrelsor is just a really good win condition. Alright, so for the fusions, I'm running 2 copies of Ulti Gaia Pelio. This is actually your signature fusion monster. It's your main negation, really. During either player's turn, when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, you can banish 1 Ritual Beast card from your hand, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. So, it's really good. It's basically invoked Makaba, so it basically negates anything, and it's not once per turn, so that's one of the things I like about this card, so it's pretty busted. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to mention about the fusions. You basically banish the materials. You don't use polymerization of any kind. It's kind of like contact fusion, basically. Next, 2 copies of Ulti Paleo. This is just generally a good way to attack without having to worry about effects. When this card declares an attack, your opponent can't activate. Well, this card's unaffected by card effects. And like I said, they all have the effect where they can tag out to bring 2 monsters back. So, like I said, it's just there for recursion. I got 1 copy of Ulti Patelfin. It just can't be destroyed by card effects, and it's a good brick wall. The fact that defense power is just really good, so that's what I like about it. Next, 2 Ulti Kenhawk. There's a reason why this card's at 1. So generally, you can once per turn you can target 2 of your banished Ritual Beast cards, return them to the graveyard, and if you do, add 1 Ritual Beast card from your deck to your hand. So that's one of the reasons why it's so good, because like the fact is, you can bypass cards like Defissure or even Macrocosmo this way. For Xyz monsters, I'm running 1 Daigusto Ermo for more recursion, and then Lightning Chidori just to clear out boards, so not bad. Alright, let me go and get through the side deck real quick. It's pretty standard. I'm running 3 copies of Nibiru, for combo heavy decks, especially going second. 3 Dark Ruler No More. 3 Cosmic Cyclone. 3 Shared Ride, and then lastly, 3 copies of Evenly Matched. And that's generally it. Aaron already knows what these cards do, and yeah. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and as always, I will catch you guys again next time.